In December 2020, Israel's former space program director Hayam Eshed made a series of shocking claims in an interview that made waves around the world. Considered the father of Israel's space capabilities, Eshed spearheaded Israeli space programs for almost 3 decades until his retirement in 2011. In the interview, Eshed claims that intelligent aliens exist and are part of a large galactic federation of extraterrestrial species. Moreover, they're in active communication with the space agencies of the United States and apparently Israel as well. These aliens are living on Mars in an underground base, according to Eshed, where they're also allegedly living alongside America's best and brightest astronauts. He didn't go into detail about how long this had been going on for, but it figures for quite a while, as they've seemingly got a lot of infrastructure already built up there. Eshed also alleged that one-time U.S. President Donald Trump almost revealed most of this information when he was POTUS, claiming that Trump had to be talked down from telling the public the truth. Not so for Eshed, however, who seems to have been allowed to reveal these details without much pushback. Unsurprisingly, his comments set the ufology community ablaze, with many pointing to his impressive scientific credentials as reason to believe what he's saying. Some skeptics questioned whether Eshed was more creatively filling in some gaps in his memory, while others suggested that he was simply, somewhat cynically, trying to promote a book published the previous month by the journalist and fantasy writer Hagar Yanai, titled The Universe Beyond the Horizon: Conversations with Professor Hayam Eshed. Regardless, interesting questions were raised by this interview about just how much what we've been told about Mars is true. The fourth planet from the Sun, Mars is generally considered to be inhospitable, though it wasn't always like that. Its magnetic field has been slowly worn away over millions of years, leaving the planet with an extremely thin atmosphere today, little to no oxygen, and plenty of radiation. It's often extremely cold, but it does have plenty of water ice at its poles. Though in images these poles can look small, they're storing the same volume of water as there is in the entire Greenland ice sheet, which is a lot of water. Therefore, it's believed that once, a long time ago, Mars could have been habitable, much like Earth is now, and indeed like Venus once was too. It is interesting to note that ever since space travel became a reality for humans in the 1950s, Mars missions have been touted as our immediate future and within reach. In the 1960s, many thought we'd have reached Mars by the 70s, and in the 70s by the 80s, and so on. Now it's the 2020s, and we're seriously looking at the 2030s for Martian settlement. While it does appear more likely than ever that humans will go to Mars then, it's also true that the time frame for Martian exploration has consistently shifted for more than half a century. It's not all gloom, doom, and missed opportunities, though. We have successfully sent many rovers and probes to the Red Planet, and space agencies around the world and private corporations have developed more and more interest in Mars. That doesn't change the fact that NASA has a long history of canceled Mars missions, however, nor that the Soviet Union once canceled its long-running Mars program either. NASA, for instance, canceled a crewed flyby of Mars in the 1970s due to reduced funding. The Soviet and eventually Russian Mars program was shelved after its missions kept failing. We know then that sending spacecraft to Mars is expensive, difficult, and time-consuming, meaning most of the other leading space agencies have also struggled. The China National Space Administration only began to launch Mars missions in the 2020s. That was Tianwen-1, launched in 2021, finally taking a Chinese rover to the planet. But maybe the real reason Mars missions are continually delayed and canceled isn't that NASA can't afford it, and that the journey is long and dangerous. Maybe it's because they're trying to keep the truth hidden. So goes at least one alternate theory anyway. Perhaps we've been going to Mars for decades, but the presence there of extraterrestrial life means that this needs to be kept top secret. Eshed said that the reason the supposed Galactic Federation hasn't been revealed to the public yet is that we aren't ready for that information, and that it could cause mass hysteria. Although one counter-argument says that if he has decided that it's time for people to know the truth about Mars, then maybe that means the time for mass hysteria is actually over, and we should be getting open communication from these apparent nearby aliens any day now. Nevertheless, if the concern about mass hysteria is genuine, it would make sense that the underground bases on Mars would be kept secret. Plus, if the aliens of the Galactic Federation had asked us to keep them a secret after they made contact with NASA, it would be perhaps a little rude to defy them. What the astronauts and aliens are working on in this alleged underground base is anyone's guess, though. Perhaps they're just living together in peace and harmony while the aliens teach us about how to live on Mars, in the hope that one day we'll be able to use this know-how to expand humanity's reach. The more sinister possibilities here are more than a little disturbing. What if there are aliens living on Mars in underground tunnels, for example, avoiding the hostile surface and the eye of human observatories, and they're not friendly? Aggressive aliens hiding out on Mars would at least be an excellent reason not to conduct more Mars missions. There's no evidence for this, of course, but onlookers have sometimes wondered about the presence of dangerous beings on Mars, or even on the Moon. It's been speculated that the long length of time between crewed lunar missions, with the last one happening in 1972, could also be because of hostile lunar inhabitants. What's clear is that if we had built a base on Mars and then had been forced to abandon it due to angry aliens, it would be both embarrassing and existentially threatening. We'd know that not only do aliens exist, but that at least some of them don't like us. And to top it off, they'd be our nearest planetary neighbors. Then again, there are some pretty glaring problems with the theory. For one, it wouldn't make much sense for NASA to have kept this Mars mission a secret before making such a discovery. The pages of its own history, then, should have records of a lost launch or two, at least. A more likely scenario would be an abrupt end to a widely publicized mission, especially since NASA, as a public organization, has an obligation to make its research accessible to all. Exciting the public about space travel is an important part of how it acquires government funding. So there's a strong view against it ever launching in secret. From a purely practical point of view, if aliens from a galactic federation ever did want to monitor humans, it would perhaps make sense that they'd do so from Mars. From there, they could observe Earth just as thoroughly as we've observed Mars, and probably more so. And again, also from a hypothetically practical perspective, the next question might be, if there are humans allowed to live with aliens on Mars, then could there also be aliens living among us here in a kind of cultural exchange? Perhaps, although it's not clear what it would take to get them to reveal themselves. Overall, if Hayam Eshed is to be believed, these Galactic Federation representatives are friendly enough that they're allowing American astronauts to join them in their settlements, which means they probably don't pose a threat to us down here. Maybe they're waiting for us to do something like stop waging wars with one another, or to reduce our nuclear arsenal, before they deem us worthy to join their wider society. That's how a supporter of the zoo hypothesis might view this particular suggestion, at least. There are all kinds of possible reasons that aliens could be working with us, but would want to continue to do so in secret. Whether or not that's actually happening is still up for debate. The official line is a clear, no, that's not what's happening. But there are theories to contest that, and rumors of a secret base hidden on Mars refuse to fully disappear.